Over half the world's population is digitally connected and everyone needs information ASAP. Making sure your employees, suppliers, and customers have access to the data they need exactly when they need it must be your #1 priority. So how can you do this? Make a digital transformation. DocLink helps you take everything digital by eliminating paper in AP and beyond to manage any process, any department, anywhere. DocLink automates the entire purchasing and AP processes, streaming three-way matching and approvals all the way through payment. Any document approval are processed and sent to the right people at the right time. Access to information for any department for anyone in the office or in the field. Delivery of documents and their backup, including customer invoices or delivery confirmation. All of this can be done on any device anywhere in the world. That's true digital transformation. Let DocLink help you go paperless, connect people, processes, and data, giving you more time, greater efficiency, and happier customers.
Please welcome our final speakers of the day, Devinder Singh, a Dynamics consultant, and Qamar Khan, a Dynamics consultant. Today, they will be presenting Automate AP Invoicing using AI and PowerAutomate for D365 Finance. Please stick around after their session for a live Q&A.
Welcome everyone. Welcome to this session of the Dynamics Con. My name is Qamar and I am with my colleague Devinder. We will going to take you through this session. So just to start, first of all, we would like to thank you to the people who have voted for our session. So thank you so much. Because of you, we are here and sharing our knowledge on the topic. And then we would also like to thank Dynamics Con for giving us this platform and opportunity to share our knowledge with you. Just going straight in. So the topic for today is like automation is one thing which, gets the interest of everyone these days. So we will try to tell you about our experience with automating AP invoicing using Power Platform and Microsoft AI Builder. And then we were able to connect it with Dynamics 365 Finance. So that's in summary our topic for today. So just keep an eye on the automation part. To start with the introduction, my name is Qamar Khan and I am originally from Pakistan, but currently based in Melbourne, Australia. I have more than 8 years of experience with the Dynamics platform, and I have the luxury to work in different regions like in the subcontinent and then in Middle East, and currently now in Australia. I have with my able colleague Devinder, so I would like him to introduce himself.
Hey, thanks, Qamar, and thank you, audience, for joining this session. My name is Devinder Singh. I'm originally from India, and I'm calling Melbourne my home from past 3 years. I've been in this Dynamics space from more than 10 years, and then I'm working as a Dynamics development consultant at the moment and based in Melbourne. Thanks for joining again.
Thank you, Devinder. Thank you, Devinder. And we also volunteer for some of the communities here, like Australia and New Zealand AX teams, and also we volunteer for the user group with respect to our countries as well. So that's it. That's our introduction. Talking from the perspective of agenda. So we will take you and show you the AP flow. So we will first try to highlight some of the problems in the conventional accounts payable or vendor invoicing flow. And then we will try to show you like what flow we want to achieve. Then after that, it's very good to start something with having end game in your mind. So you really want to know where you're going. So we will not try to delay our demo. So we will just start with a short demo video of what this automated solution looks like from the beginning. And then we are going to explain you like what we have done with respect to components and different steps involved in order to achieve this end-to-end process. After that, we will just tell you some of the common challenges, some of the considerations that you need to take. So these are some of the questions in your mind that we are sort of expecting. We don't have telepathy skills though, that's just a note. And then, yeah, we invite you to, come to our live Q&A session chat and then ask us any questions if you have. So yeah, so AP invoicing is like a very interesting topic, and we know it's a very resource consuming and conventional process at different clients, although now the game is picking up for getting it automated with Microsoft Power Platform providing some suitable functionalities. But the approach is always to look for a solution, so if you know this guy, I hope you don't annoy him, but our I intend from this guy is that you need to look for the best solution, and wherever it is, you need to find it, and then you need to get it implemented. So we are trying to tell you one automation solution which you can build using Power Platform. We don't say there aren't any, but this is something we are going to show you in this session. These are some of the problems that we have with the conventional AP structure or system. So number one, in a conventional AP setting, you have high hard labor costs. So you have different resources who are pulling through the invoice documents and then doing the data entry into the system, whether it's the 365 Finance or stuff. All the modern ERP systems sort of try to minimize that, but still they need to input a lot of data, key in data, and which is prone to, having different sort of errors. But the key point here is it involves labor cost. You can just go in your region, check the average salaries of the AP resources that you have. You can just divide it by hours or divide it by the number of invoices your organization processes, and you will get to know like how much you are spending per invoice for like those hard labor cost resources. Then there are high proofing, document proofing costs, because normally in a conventional setting, you get a sort of a docket, like a combination of different invoice, purchase order printouts, and with product receipt printouts, and then somebody will have to go through them, proofing them. So that's a lengthy process. With respect to approvals, we have seen in different organizations, like for invoicing, they're first confused whether to put some approvals or not, because they have a procurement approval process in there, and then this approval process makes things lengthier. And also, although it's not pretty recommended, but we have seen from the experience, like some organizations, they do have external approvals for invoicing, which the users which are not part of their core ERP team, and that sort of really kills the time in the process. When we have some errors with respect to data entry or any other, it's very hard to correct those errors in the manual process, because you have to go and look for the documents and stuff. So it's very difficult there. In the end of the month, in the end of the closing period, we know a lot of clients, they process their customer invoices. So as an AP, you will receive slightly more number of invoices towards the end of the month, and you are also rushing to close your month, because you have to take care of all the things, all the recordings by a certain timeline. So it becomes very hard if you have to do more data entry, because that's the time we think you need to handle the exceptions, or you need to look from the reporting perspective. But basically you are stuck in the data entry process, and you lose hard time, and you also may ignore some of the red lights there. Then another major problem is with respect to transparency or visibility. So once a hard copy lands on your front desk or somewhere, people don't know about that invoice, whether it has reached your system or not, unless someone processes in the system, and which we know it sometimes takes some delays, and this overall creates a problem with the transparency visibility of the overall flow. And yes, the paper. If you have the experience of going into some of those conventional organizations, you may see they have dedicated sort of rooms, where you have piles and piles of paper just for the record keeping purposes. So it's just not the wastage. It's again, managing those things is very hard. So these are some of the common problems. I'll touch back on these problems once I'll show you what our process looks like for the AP automation. So this is a brief sort of example of what flow we would like to achieve through automation. So it starts with having an email from your vendor, which just has an attachment with the vendor invoice. And then we are leveraging the PowerAutomate features to get that attachment from that email. And then AI Builder is a tool which will help us in reading or decoding the contents of that invoice. So we will get all the important information, like what products are in, what are the amounts on the invoice and stuff. We'll talk about it. And then we can route it through an invoice approval. So this is some approval which we are talking before creating that document into the 365 Finance. We know that there is a workflow approval in 365 Finance. You maybe, so this steps is sort of like optional for you. If you want to utilize it, then do. Otherwise, you can utilize the later approval as well. And then we get the straight document into RAX. So the summary objective here is your AP resource does not need to worry about where the document is. They just will get that invoice document pending in their daily work queue. And then that's the point where they will start to pick it up. Or if you automate it further, like using the system's capabilities of like three-way matching and tolerances and all that, then maybe he will just have to look at the exceptions, rather than doing the data entry and stuff. So all the other process will be automated and getting dealt with on its own. So just moving further. So like we said, what's the end game? So now we are going to show you that so brace yourself, some automation is coming. So this is a brief video. So I'll just play the video and talk through that. This is a demonstration. So the first thing on the video which you will see is basically that's an inbox. So where we have received an email from our supplier or our vendor with an attachment of the invoice. So there are various ways to configure this flow differently, in your system, like the initial trigger points. But we have, simply configured an example which identifies most of the details from the invoice document itself. So that's why you don't see like any other details in the subject or any of the context as well. But based on your scenario, you can tailor it a bit. So just playing. So there is an email that we have received in our AP mailbox. So the PowerAutomate step is basically to show you that our PowerAutomate flow is running. So you can see the top one. Once I refresh it, it's running now. You can see here. So once the flow picks up the attachment, it leverages Microsoft Teams and gets this Teams bot to post a message within Teams where you can approve or reject it, or you can just like copy the link, which I have, for example. You can click the link and then open the document itself. So this sort of gives you an ability to see the invoice document as well. So we'll talk about Microsoft Teams integration. So once you have approved, then nothing is stopping you. We are going into AX365 Finance. We have nothing in the pending list. So we are clicking a refresh and there you go. So we have a pending invoice here. So we can, do different configuration criteria and identification criteria based on that. But we are talking into like a scenario which is more complex, which is purchase order based invoicing. So you will get a pending invoice which can be based on your purchase order. You can also follow the same process with respect to invoice journal invoices as well. But that's, we are trying to explain you a scenario which is more complex. So as you have seen, it's just the process of getting an email, then giving an approval. That's again optional, and then getting that invoice as a pending invoice directly into your system. Now, just looking at this flow, if you connect back with the problems that I've discussed, so I'll briefly tell you like what this flow will achieve for you. So we now have automated data entry, number one. So you save all the hard labor cost, and then you avoid all those mistakes which someone will do, like fat finger mistakes or any other sort of data entry mistakes. Then the labor is required, but your labor or AP team will be more focused on handling the exceptions rather than doing the data entry and the manual works. So we have effective process. So when you involve Microsoft Teams, the idea is that you have dedicated channels where you have approvers, and then you direct those team cards to those approvers. So that gives an approver a very interactive way where they can see a summary information along with the original scan of the invoice, which basically came from your email, that PDF attachment. And then they can take a decision whether they want to approve it or not. And then in your PowerAutomate flow, you can have different sort of lines of different steps based on what action they will take, whether they approve or reject it, or they decide to approve it manually. Then you save a lot of time on error handling. Number one, you don't have any like those usual common errors. But if you have some, you can, use Microsoft Teams reporting to even design the exception handlings. You can handle large volumes because there is no human effort involved in it. So your AP team, yes, they may have more exceptions near the closing period, but definitely that's the thing you actually want them to do, so they will not be bombarded with, like a lot of data entry at that point. And then you have more transparency. So when you involve teams, so now you see like the moment you have received that inbox invoice, the system will read that invoice and put up a message to log that you have received an invoice. So you have a very like transparent system. So if some vendor asks you, like, have you received their invoice, or if someone internally inquires about it in a paper-based environment, what you will do is you will go through for the paper, or first you will check in the system and you will not find that invoice because you haven't entered it. But if you use Teams and PowerAutomate steps, you can leverage on the ability of the bot and get that thing logged in your log of received invoices, and which really helps the cause. And big thing is you are saving on a lot of paper. You no more need to have those record rooms, because you can also leverage electronic, like SharePoint, handling of those files as well, and you can save all those files for your record keeping electronically. So breaking it down, so what we have shown you how we have achieved this. So we are not sorcerers, that's just the one thing I want to be clear on this. So we will show you how you can actually do it yourself and build the internal sort of OCR in AP automation process. So the first component of the tool that we have used is AI Builder. So AI Builder is available on the PowerAutomate platform as a functionality. So where you can train basically an AI model to read your data, give you some insights, and use those insights in different tools on the PowerAutomate. So in this short demo over here, we will show you how we have leveraged the AI models form processing capabilities. We also know that Microsoft is now providing out-of-box invoice processing features, but for this example, we have used form processing because we were, going to the purchase order-based invoicing, so which are mainly using, table capabilities and line level features. So I'll just play and talk through this video. So what we need to do is, first thing is we need to create a new AI model. So we go into all builds in the AI model and we click on the form processing. We just enter the name. So this is any name which you like for your AI builder model. And then we will sort of click create. So this will take you to another page where then you will have an option to anticipate the fields. So now we are anticipating some of the fields which we want to extract from the invoice format itself. So like invoice number, so there will be invoice number on the invoice. Then we need invoice date. Then maybe we need vendor's email address, or vendor's number. So whatever details you need within your flow to identify different elements of the vendor invoice for its processing, you can do that. And then in the table features, we are trying to handle the lines. So on the lines grid, we have a column for item ID. So we want to extract the item ID. Then we have quantities, unit prices, taxes. So it really depends on your scenario and in your setting, whatever you have. So you just add all those possible fields. Just remember, these are the fields which you will later need to create the documents within 365Finance. You can use collections. So basically, collections help you to combine similar sort of formats. So if you have different vendors with different formats, you can have multiple collections which you can use. So here we are adding some documents. Why we are adding these documents? So we need some of the formats, existing formats for a particular vendor, which we will use to train our model. So basically we need to upload these formats, and then on these formats, first initially, we have to guide the AI model that where are all those fields which we have just added before this step. So now system is just analyzing the documents. So this may take take a few seconds for the system to analyze. And then you will see in the next step, you will go and maybe chart out those fields on the formats itself. We have sort of kept it in a way that where you can actually feel like you're configuring this. We haven't chopped this waiting part for you. So there you go. So now my system has loaded a format, and then first it will try to identify those fields by itself. If not, then you will have an option to draw those fields. So here you can see, like, I'm selecting invoice number, and then I'm basically drawing the same fields on the format, and then telling the format what field it is. So doing one by one. Then I'm going into the table. So as you can see, it has pretty much identified my tables. So it has a very good result when the format is actually built using table capabilities. So you may face some of the challenges with some table formats, but it's just you have to try to see like how good it works. So you have to do this across these 5 documents. So once you have done on the one document, it's pretty obvious that it's gonna identify on the rest of it. But if still there is like a minor difference in your format, then you can train all those 5 formats, and then you can link items if there is a missing link on any of the formats. So once you have done that, you just select this train option. So your model is basically now trained in the system, and the next thing is you will get a model which is sort of ready to use, ready to be published. So once you publish it, you can even do a quick test, which will help you to upload a similar document and see whether it identifies all those fields or not. Otherwise, you can just click publish, and then this AI model will be ready to use in the PowerAutomate. So we will tell you later that how we have used in this AI model in the PowerAutomate. So there you go. So that was pretty much it. You can use it in different apps, different flows. But in our example, we will be using this AI model into the PowerAutomate. All right. So from here, we'll just hand over to Devinder. So Devinder will now sort of explain you how we have built a complete PowerAutomate flow to handle this overall scenario. Yeah, Devinder, please.
Thanks, Qamar. I would not go into too much detail on how to create a new flow, but it's just on what we have decided to put into this particular flow. As you can see in that first page or first screen, you first receive an email, you just initialize a variable. I'll come to that point later on. But for each attachment on that email, you basically do all these below steps. You first process the attachment, like whatever PDF or invoice you have received. You will just process that PDF to get the data out of that file. And if you want to create the same file in your SharePoint, you just create that file and then get its properties. And then second one is like you send those details to teams for approval, and based on your approval check, you do the next steps. If you can click on next, Qamar. And once you have the approvals, you just put all those details and create a new invoice and invoice lines in the Dynamics AX. So that's the overall process. We'll go into details on each step now. We can go to the next screen, please. All right. So the first step is on new email. You just specify which folder you want to pick up the new files from. And if you go into advanced option, you will get more details on like which subject, or if you prefer any particular email address. Like in our scenario, we used to prefer that it comes into common email the channel, and every vendor or everyone is actually sending their invoices to this particular email box. And based on a particular subject and file name, we pick up all those emails and processes those. And as I said earlier, second step is to initialize a variable. This variable is very important. It will be used to create your invoice headers and invoice lines, because this variable will be used to link all those settings for D365 environment. Now, once you have the attachments ready with you, your email is received, your flow is triggered. It will pick up the email. If the email is having multiple attachments, it will process the attachments individually. And for each attachment, we are actually doing these processing the attachment. Now, this process the attachment is basically a predict the model, like from your model which Qamar has shown you earlier. This is a step we have to specify which model need to be used. There, like right now, it's for demo purpose. I have selected the model directly, but you can use some kind of variables to initialize the model as well. Now, if in this particular demo, we have selected that the attachment type will be application or PDF file, and the document will be the attachment from the email or this current attachment content. It's in base 64 encoded format. So if you are aware of that, it takes the input as base 64 encoded values and then gives the output in format of a JSON file, and we can use that for integrating with D365 or in all for any other environment as well. Now, for our base scenario, we have decided to create a SharePoint file with that as well, so that we can send it for approvals later on. So that is the step we have added as create file in the screen below. Now, if you remember the initial steps after creating the file into SharePoint, we send the details for approval to a particular member or a group, whatever your preference is. For the current one, we have decided to send it to myself again. So you can see the recipient is me, and message contains all the details that your model has read through. And for now, we have added all the invoice header details, not going into the line level. We have identified the invoice vendor name, vendor number, invoice date, and what is the total invoice amount for this one. And for checking out more details, or if you want to see the actual invoice before approving it or before rejecting it, I've given the details of the SharePoint link where it has been uploaded. Now, this SharePoint link is helpful in reviewing what are all invoices you have received, if you want to take a look at that later on as well. Now, one of the important point is these options ones. Like these are manually done. Like I can type in anything, approve, reject, process manually, or any other new item or any other value available for your particular scenario or for your company, whatever you prefer to choose. You can write down anything. And once this step is executed, you will see something like on the right side where Flow will automatically post this message to the recipient. Like it can be a channel. You will see something like this where you will get all the details of the invoice header and then the SharePoint link which I have pasted, and with the three option approve, reject, and process manually. So the user or the group needs to go to that channel or teams, and then they need to approve or whatever they prefer to do with that. Now, the next step is based on the user's choice here. We need to process this. If you go back to that slide, please, Qamar. Yeah, if you can see the below screenshot, we have done cases like approval check is done. Based on the selection, we do either approve case or we do the reject case. And then there is a third case, which is process manually. Depending on whatever you want to do with each case, we will go ahead and create different scenarios with that. All right. In this particular scenario, we are creating the invoices in our D365 finance and operation environment. And these are the steps we added for header and lines individually. First, we'll talk about the header itself. So we need to select the instance where you need to send this information and create the header or the invoice. And we are currently selecting the standard out of the box entity that is provided, which is vendor invoice headers. It is automatically exposed, and you can make use of it to create your invoices. We pick up the details from your model. And if you notice this invoice header, it's not actually the number or anything. It's just a unique identifier for this header, so that you can use it later on as well to link up with your lines, or if you want to process something or add some more details later on in the flow for this particular invoice. So we have this invoice header only for uniquely identifying this particular invoice. We have the number that is picked up from your model, AI model, and then the invoice account is automatically picked up from the invoice as well. Now, the currency and company, it's depend on the particular settings you have. Right now, we have basically put it as a hard-coded values, but it can be identified by using your particular scenario. For some of the settings, you may want to check if the vendor exists in which particular company, and based on that you want to send that invoice into that company. For all those things, you need to add additional steps into your flow to get all these details. But for the demo purpose, we are just concentrating on putting it as hard-coded values. And whatever your invoice contains, you can go to advanced option and see all other fields that are available to you for adding into this invoice. If we go next to this apply to each, that is for individual lines. Like for a particular invoice, as Qamar shown in that AI model as well, one invoice is having multiple lines in the invoice, and you have different item IDs and quantities available. So for each individual line, you can just apply to each line and then get these details from the AI model. And you add this step to create lines. And then again, we have these vendor invoice lines already available to us. The entity is already exposed to us by standard model. And you just input all those values. One hard-coded, we have done the company name, but all else is like coming from the header or the your model itself. So once you have done this addition, it depends on your choice whether you want to post a message on the Teams for a successful thing, and you get an additional option. If there is any error in, let's say, creating the line or creating the header, you can post a message on in other channel or on the same channel, depending on your choice, that something has failed on our end. And based on that particular message, you may want to push this SharePoint file into a different folder, or you may want to do any other step. But it all depends on your choice, what you want to do and what you want to do in case of any error. But basically for us, we have just shown you that how to handle particular errors in case if it comes in creating the line, or in case it comes when creating the header itself. So that's for D365 Finance and operations front. So this was previously we talked about finance and operations, but this same solution can be extended for any other ERP or any other module as well. What you need to do is, instead of getting all these details and directly putting it into entities, what we can do is we can initialize the JSON variables. Like I've shown you in the left hand side, if you can see, you just created some JSON variables, and then on the right hand side you are updating all those values and creating line JSON and the header JSON. And depending on your REST API, whichever API you want to call, and then you can pass on these JSON files to the API, and that should do your job and create those invoice and invoice lines into the particular instance.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, this step is for people who are not integrating it with D365. That's if you are doing it with 365 Finance, the connection portion is more than enough for you.
Yep, thanks, Qamar. Yeah, this is like we are extending the same solution It's just for a different software other than the finance and operations. The API one was for any other third-party software where you've exposed your APIs to, receive all the invoices and invoice lines. But in case your software doesn't have these services available to you for consuming, you can make use of the RPA solution, which are again part of your desktop flows in MS flows or PowerAutomate. You can just make use of this RPA solution to extend the same solution. Instead of just you can get all these values again using your AI model and then inputting it through RPA in your uh, software, like which doesn't expose any of these APIs. You can just make use of RPA solution to have these entries into your software if all those services are not available to you. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can put that into your chat box and we will answer as per our time availability. Yeah.
Thank you, Devinder.
Next
Very
one.
well explained. It was a bit challenging, to explain each step, but I think we have got, like more than enough information. And then, yeah, like Devinder said, you can tailor the flow as per your need. We'll talk about a little more on the subject if you are still interested, which I hope you are, so why not if you want a little more details. So these are basically some of the topics, some of the points which we just want to quickly catch up. So if you have a question, like if you have multiple formats for different vendors, all vendors, as we know in practical world, they don't have similar formats. So you can then use the collection feature, which we have explained you at the time of showing the AI model to, consolidate your different formats into different collections and then use that. Identification logic. So this is very important. This is the whole crux, like how you will identify the right information to pass through your 365 finance. So every company is different. They sometimes have different setups. For example, if you are like a company which has mainly centralized procurement, then your invoices or maybe stocks may be coming into centralized warehouse, and you may not need to worry about, like which location that invoice belongs to. But if you are, let's say, a retail organization where stores are independent, they can order for their stocks, then you may have another thing where you want to also, sort of identify from the invoice that which store is relevant for this invoice. So you can, think of different ways. So your main source is the invoice format and the email from which that invoice is coming from. So you can match the email in your address book on the vendor to identify the vendor. And then for additional things, like maybe you want to identify the purchase order which this invoice relates to, or you want to relate with the product receipt. So you can talk to your vendor and get those details on the invoice format and then map those fields within the 365 connector, and then let's say automatically connect that invoice with the PO. Another, for example, one important thing is, like in example we show you, you may argue like those item IDs are internal item IDs, but when we get an invoice from the vendor, we receive external or vendors item IDs. So for that, you can configure external item IDs for your products with respect to vendors within 365 Finance. And then in your connector, you can write this logic, which basically translates or picks up your internal product IDs after relating them with external vendor IDs. So there are a lot of logic there. There can be multiple legal entity structure at your end, and you may want to have one supplier which supplies you across legal entities, and then that's another thing which you will have to take care of. So these are just some things which you need to think before designing this solution, right? And comparing it with the benefits, definitely that's not a big deal, to talk your vendor into, because if your vendor will have this thing that they will getting payments more on time, they will have more transparency with respect to their documents management and liability management, definitely they will be interested to help you out here. Is it free? No, man, though. So these are not things which should be free, because they give you a lot of benefits. So with respect to cost, just contact your local Microsoft Office, because easily we can tell you like it's 50 cents per invoice, but there is a cost which you have to incur, with processing or using AI models. So just keep in touch with your local Microsoft. They will have a better idea of pricing for you. Why we use Microsoft Teams? Look, Microsoft Team usage was optional, right? You can, or you may want to, or you may not want to. You can also change the approvals from Microsoft Teams to different other capabilities which are available in PowerAutomate, where you can send through email approvals and stuff. But we really think like Microsoft Teams is not just limited to approvals. Number one, it helps you in approvals. It gives the approvers like one segmented, one particular channel where they can go and, avoid all the hustle of approving and going into different emails and stuff. So they will have a very interactive cards where they can approve or reject something. And secondly, you can have, like Devinder mentioned, like error handling. You can just have, from the communication perspective, you can have different channels where you can just log an acknowledgement of an invoice received, or you can log different errors, in different channels, and then give access to relevant people for those channels, so they can just go and see those errors and take some actions. So it's really, like how you manage this change, how you implement this automation. And we really recommend you, to use Microsoft Teams with this automation. On approvals, like I gave a reference, you can use email approvals as well, not just the team approval. You can configure it in PowerAutomate. But this PowerAutomate basically helps you even to get approvals from some non-ERP users. So in some regions, I know sometimes some people are not having an ERP license or not working in the ERP, which is a bad thing. But anyways, so what you can do is, rather than like taking that hard copy to that person, you can, everybody has emails, right? So you can engage those people with respect to email, where email will have that link for the actual invoice document as well. So you will save a lot of time in doing that. So then afterwards, when the document is creating in the ERP, you can just get approvals from the ERP users itself. So it's totally dependent on how you want it convenient. We showed you an example of purchase order based invoices, but you can apply the same logic to invoice journal. That's more easy because you have to extract like vendor information and the total values. So you may not be interested in capturing each individual lines in the invoices, like for example, electricity bills or some consulting services and that kind of stuff, for which you don't raise a purchase order.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this session. My name is Qamar, and with me is Devinder. So first of all, we will really like to thank you guys for voting us and then obviously attending this session. So what we're gonna do is quickly, in the interest of time, it's quite a bit of chilly morning in the Melbourne, sunlight is coming in, so hopefully you can see as well. Thank you so much for putting all the interesting questions. So what we will try to do is that first, we will definitely try to answer the question straight away, and then see, in the interest of time, if we have any left, then maybe we'll catch up 1 or 2 points. So just to start with, we had a very good question. So with respect to the format, so the first question was how we find the formats from Michelle. So I think we have tried different formats. We have tried the attachments. Like in this example, we have used an email attachment. So the results of using an email or electronic document which is not having any tempering or all was pretty good, pretty awesome. But then we use the actual scan documents, which let's say are received in the hard copy format, and then we can scan it. Or sometimes some people, they used to write different notes on those invoices and then scan them. So we had a pretty good results with them as well. Only thing is, I think the table features need a bit of maturity. So where the format does not like specifically put borders to the tables, you may face some challenges over there. But all in all, I think we were pretty happy with the model. If you want to add anything, Devinder, here.
That's mostly it. Yeah, it's the OCR feature in the Microsoft as still under development. Like there will still be updates coming out, and the feature will definitely get improved over the time.
Yeah, so the next question for Jake, how, interested the vendors are to change the format. I think it totally depends, on your bargaining power. I think if I'm a vendor and if you will guarantee me that my invoices will be booked in time and then I'll be paid in time, because my invoices will have less error and then I will be contacted less for having different questions or even, like resending the formats and stuff. Maybe I'll be happy to make changes in the system. And in today's electronic world, most vendors, they do have a standardized format. But still, I don't disagree to this point that after implementing this solution, you may need to ask your vendor to add some further details. But I think because this solution has a potential to create a win-win situation for your vendor as well. And another aspect of the solution is here your vendor is not paying anything actually. It's the cost. Whatever the costs are is coming to you. In certain EDI platforms, the vendors need to subscribe to a certain service and pay there. So that's another benefit or another motivational factor where vendor will think, oh, okay, I just need to change the format, so maybe I'll come. And again, if you're able to get those changes from your major vendors or for your major volumes, definitely you will, get rid of the major manual workflow that you have. Any comment on the use of logic apps, Devinder?
It depends. It totally depends on the person. Like, what is your business scenario? If you want to use logic apps, you can use logic apps. There are a couple of scenarios where maybe if you want to show up your PDF on to Dynamic 365, you can maybe create those packages and then send it through logic app. It totally depends. And when you see it. PowerAutomate and Logic apps are pretty similar. It's how things go. Like some of the features are definitely better in Logic apps, but mostly PowerAutomate will work as well.
Thank you for that, Devinder. Specifically for customer, yeah, the one which we showed you is based for this demo purpose only, but the peers have implemented this solution and it's sort of like working on the customers. So all in all, it works, Um, and then some very good comments made by Damien. Yeah, it's again, like we actually try to introduce this kind of capabilities which are available in the out of box, tools provided by Microsoft. So you can then leverage on those and build additional features. Like you can then use this in conjunction with some automation on your payment side of your AP, because AP is like whole vast area, right? It's not just the booking the invoice, but this is one of the most like manually handled processes. So definitely there is an opportunity, like how you refine the solution, how you put specifically like exception handling. So for example, in our flow, we didn't talk much on the exception handling, but that's another area which you can add different flow steps to handle it. I think we'll talk about more when we come to the Teams part. But thanks for those comments. They are spot on. With the desktop flows, I think again it depends on application to application. We have tried with some legacy applications where the results were good, by using the desktop flows. But to be honest, mostly because we integrated with sort of 365 space, that's where we had more of our experience. But I think, yeah, you just need to check with your legacy application that how it works. So it's a question on the overall, like how fit the desktop flow is, because this process will only get you the data and then it will leave it to the desktop flow capabilities to talk with your legacy applications. Have you used this type of solution for the scannings and keywords? Yeah, that's a very good point actually. So it's it's not that form processing capabilities are there just for invoicing. I know if you will go on the internet and you search, most of people will show you scenarios similar to the invoicing ones, but yeah, you can use it for other documents. I think we were quite impressed with the OCR capabilities of reading, and as we know, AI models, the more documents people will use to train the models, the better they will get. So definitely you can extract some key information, like for example, there are some like HR forms, which are in circulation, or HR requests which people like put up in some basic portals, which will at the end give you some printouts, and it may not be 100% automated from start to end. So you can use those, or you can get those filled forms and then use this model to sort of push that data through a proper PowerAutomate workflow, and approval processes. So that's very helpful. Yeah, Devinder, you want to add anything to this?
So if you go to those models, there are like multiple models available, and it depends on how you train that model as well, like how many samples you can provide to that model. Um, more samples you provide, the more better it can give you the results. And in predictability, the model gives you a percentage of how much you have, what's the accuracy of the results. If you think that you can use that in your logic, that if the accuracy is more than 95%, then only like process that invoice. If you think that that accuracy is not up to your standards, you can maybe send it to a different channel that this invoice need to be processed manually instead of going through approvals.
That's great. Just on one question for the approvals, so like adding the approvals in the Power Automate is totally an optional step. Being 365 consultants, we know that there is like a detailed workflow, capabilities available on the D365 side of invoice flow. But yeah, it's up to you, because like I mentioned, sometimes some people prefer those simple approvals, and some people may be outside their ERP licensing, even though still, they can, if they think, those usage of team or usage of email will be more attractive or helpful for the user, they can use that. Otherwise, you can just, create this initial document in the 365, and then user will submit it to the standard workflow. So there is no limitation over there. I think with handwriting, so what we have done, we have sort of done a lot of like notes, or we got actual examples which had a lot of notes on the formats, and we tried to see what impact it makes on the readability of the document. So it was pretty good, but I don't think so we have tried anything specific just to see how it's handwriting. Devinder, if you have any
I've not tried it for invoices, but I've tried it for other purpose. Like on side note, I created like kind of a format, and then once you handwrite everything onto that format, it basically I used it to create user stories for my SDO and things. I've not tried it for the invoices, but for user story it worked pretty well. But these samples need to be provided a bit more than what you provide for electronic document.
Yep, that's great. Yeah, and the matching logics, yes. So all the matching logics and the tolerance checks, definitely those are happening in 365, and that's what we are recommending, because once it hits the ERP, those validations need to occur, and because the ERP engine is quite powerful, there are a lot of like the examples of having a matching policy, examples of having the matching policy per vendor, and defining tolerances with respect to vendors, and overall company level policies. So it's always better to keep it in 365. So once the document hits there, then you can handle those exceptions. Just one point here with respect to teams I wanted to elaborate further is that you can leverage teams in all these areas pretty good. Like you can create some dedicated channels, and just give the access to those specific users. So they can just jump into, let's say, somebody who is in charge of seeing any failed document. So if your model was not able to read any document and it didn't extracted the mandatory information, you can create another log where someone will take an action, maybe talk to vendor, like why there was changes in the format or what's the issue, and they can get on top of that. So teams really help, and just for the overall communication process, I think it adds a transparency and reliability to the process. Devinder, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, if you add all these matching logics and tolerance, it would make your flow a bit bulky, and then the response time will also get increased, like to and fro movement from flow to AX to verify things and then get back that information to flow. It would become very bulky, and I would not prefer to do it like that, and let D365 handle all that logics. And by how Qamar chooses teams, I should say that he should be teams PO.
See, that's where you have to figure out what works best for you. I mean, do you really want that added level of transparency? If you want, then like Devinder said, there is a cost to it on the process. You will have more complex flow. You will have more steps to be executed, and the whole purpose of this thing is to reduce time in the overall cycle. So if you end up creating a 50-step process with 50 different pieces of information going irrelevantly to the people, and they are getting involved, they are coming and checking the information, but that really doesn't add value to their process, yeah, then definitely you are killing the whole purpose of this integration. But if there is certain level of communication which needs to happen, and that sort of helps to speed up the process or increase the quality of the process, then why not? Then teams can be a very good option for them. I have put some important links in the chat, so do check out. These are some sort of introductory links where you can go and check out the trial for the AI builder, or you can even read more information about the AI builder. I am also pasting the LinkedIn links to our profiles. So if you want to catch up on LinkedIn, if you have any other question which you were not able to ask here, or want to follow up on any other thing, or want to share your experience, feel free to contact us on the LinkedIn. Any comments, Devinder, or if any last questions, we can then wrap this up.
All good for me. Maybe just to identify the vendors, that was one point that was not explained properly, but you can check the emails from which it came through, and then verify that email, which does it exist in this company, or does it exist for in AX, what's the vendor ID? If you want to go through that part, you can send a request to D365 and receive that particular information based on the email ID, and then go through that part to identify the vendor ID and any other stuff if you want to get, which is not there in invoice. So that's one part you can do to extend the solution. That's
great. Yeah, I think we are near time. So again, we would like to thank all the attendees, and thanks to all the awesome people who have asked us questions. Thank you so much, and thank you so much to the Dynamics Con for providing us this opportunity. Devinder, if you have any last comments on this.
That's I would also say that thanks a lot, guys. It's a great platform to showcase your knowledge and then learn so many things from different people who are sharing their knowledge on this platform. So thank you all for giving sessions, attending sessions, and yeah, have a good day. See you all.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.